Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the short-term price action of Bitcoin, analyzing our most important charts that dictate the direction that Bitcoin moves. Is this a short-term correction that we're about to see new upside, or is this ultimately going to lead us into a bigger sell-off? I'm going to break it down for you guys so that we know exactly where the price is headed. We're also going to be taking a look at my top 5 altcoins for 2023. I made this video a couple weeks back, and all of these altcoins have done really well. We're going to be taking an update for all of the people that participated, analyzing some of the ones that are still good buys right now, so that everybody is ahead of the market and prepared for what is about to happen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are to start off today's video by taking a look at Bitcoin. We're going to get into some of our more important charts that dictate the direction Bitcoin is headed. And as it stands right now, nothing has really happened for the most part. Bitcoin has just been in this correction ever since the FOMC meeting, where we saw the price of Bitcoin actually make a new high. But nonetheless, nothing is really confirmed yet. We're still holding support, and we really haven't done anything besides consolidate inside of this range. Now, as it stands with this range, it reminds me a lot of some of the early Bitcoin market structure, and this would have been the first move that we saw once we broke out of our 2019 bear market bottom. Really, at the very end of 2018, when we finished the exact bottom for Bitcoin at 3,200, we made our breakout to $5,500, and it did this exact formation on the way back up, which tells me that there is the potential that we could be in a very similar type of market structure. And it looks very similar to me as it stands right now. It's roughly the same sort of symmetry, although anything can change. A lot of this is going to be dictated around what the stock market does. But as it stands right now, this exact consolidation isn't anything that we haven't seen before, which tells me that, we have to wait for confirmation before we get too excited one way or another. The fact of the matter is we have horizontal support all the way back down here at about $22,350. And so I really wouldn't be surprised to see us actually make one more low, retest the very lowest support level inside of this range. And if we do that, that would catch a lot of people off guard because of the fact we would also be breaking our trending support. Because keep in mind, as it stands right now, we have just managed to hold trending support. Every single time we've bounced off of this level, every single time we've hit this level, we've ultimately produced a bounce, and we're sitting on it right now. And so there could be further consolidation on this level. With that being said, I also wouldn't be surprised to see us actually make one more low that would take us back down to, like I said, about $22,300. And so nonetheless, it can still hold bullish market structure. The big thing is if we start clearing below our support down here, then at that point, it would be looking like we would have a bigger correction. If we fell down to here, and then we were managed to sell back below this level, I would expect a decent flush that would take us probably all the way back down to 20,700 or so. And that's basically the way I would be looking at this market structure. But until then, we're holding support. Nothing has really changed. And a lot of this is going to be dictated around what takes place inside of the stock market. And with the S&P 500, if we come down here and actually take a look at this, we're going to get into the shorter time frames. We really haven't done a whole lot. We are getting closer towards consolidating back down to this previous high, and we have actually bounced off it a couple times with this move that we saw right after the market opened. We could see this produce a bounce and then us to get continuation. The big thing for me is in the shorter time frames, keep in mind I'm only on the 5-minute candlesticks, so there's really a lot of volatility that could come into here. In the shorter time frames, if we could manage to get above this resistance, that would confirm a double bottom, and I would actually expect that the market would start trending back up again. But until we can't get above that, until we have confirmed higher high, then we're most likely just going to continue to drop lower. And so with that being said, if we're going to be looking at potentially a lower drop inside of the price, where could we end up? And that's where I would come over here and draw from the range high. And we would actually be looking at somewhere around the 618 Fibonacci, which would be about 3,900 to about 4,000. That's where I would be expecting some type of a move lower. But until then, guys, we are actually sitting on top of the previous high. I would expect that in the short term, based off of the FOMC meeting, and not just FOMC, but also just the market data that came out with the job earnings and the reports and things like that. With all of that kind of factoring into play, everything was bullish. Everything that was said in FOMC was bullish. We're not in a recession. We're not really in anything that would dictate the market going lower. And so I really wouldn't be surprised if this ultimately ends up flipping bullish and then we do actually get a rally back upwards of about 4,300. That's kind of the way that I'm going to be playing the market as it stands right now. If we do manage to get a correction below this, like I stated, I think that we would come back down to about the 3,900 area, and then we would probably start going back up again. That's the way that I'm going to be playing the market, and I think that that's ultimately going to be the way that we determine where the heck Bitcoin is headed. Now, if we come over here and take a look at the DXY, this is going to be a really important chart to talk about, considering the fact we've had a nice bounce off of the range lows. And I've been updating you guys with this as it follows. Now, FOMC meeting, we actually broke below support, but then directly after, when all of the markets started pulling back, the dollar finally started to bounce. And I've been watching this level here at about 101 as our support level and our lowest level that I didn't want to see us ever go below. Even though we had a short-term pierce below this level, we immediately rebounded and we've made a higher high. So we are retesting our first resistance level at about the 103 to 104 level. And as it stands right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we did manage to get some type of a pullback, just to come back down and retest this support level that we just rallied back above, which would be taking us somewhere around the 102.5 area. And then from there, I would expect that we would most likely bounce back up again. And from here, we can go a couple different ways. Inside of the Bitcoin chart, inside of the SPX, the dollar is going to dictate what ends up happening. I mean, if the SPX ends up bouncing, the dollar is going to pull back. Bitcoin's also going to bounce with the SPX. But with us being at resistance, we can go a couple different ways. If we dive into the shorter time frames, as it stands right now, we have made a decent move right back up into resistance, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing a pullback at this level here. If we do, like I stated, I'm not thinking that this is over, but you know, we could actually see this if the SPX starts making another new all-time high. If the SPX makes another high, and if Bitcoin makes another high and starts rallying upwards of 25, 26, and 27,000, we would ultimately expect this to continue to drop back down. So that's kind of the way that I'm going to be watching out for the DXY. Regardless, I think that this thing can actually have a bigger bounce than people are expecting, and that's kind of the important thing that we need to be factoring in. Even if we reject off this level, I do think that we would bounce back up, and we'd be going upwards of about 105.5, and we could even come all the way back up here to about the 107 to 108 region. And keep in mind, guys, that this could be a lengthier consolidation. We might make higher highs and higher lows and do something more like this before this move is over. Because when we look at the price of Bitcoin, in my opinion, it's apparent that we are going to be expecting to see some type of bigger correction. Like I stated with my Elliott wave count, we finished wave 1. I believe that this is wave 3, and we're inside of wave 4 currently. And then after this correction, whether we come back down or whether we just manage to hold support pretty much where we're at, I do expect that our final rise in price, upwards of 26 to 27K, will be our final impulse before we have a deeper correction. And so with the DXY now retesting a pretty important level, a level that I've been very adamant about explaining that we will most likely see a bounce from, I think it's very apparent that the early signs of Bitcoin and the SPX having a deeper correction is becoming more apparent to me, at least based off of the DXY chart. We've had a massive decline all the way down here. I can see 5 impulse waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 back down. And so I would expect a bigger ABC correction back up. And that's why I state that we could see a short-term pullback. The market kind of rallies once again, but big picture, I honestly think that we could rally all the way back up to about 108. And then that would set us in for, you know, a bigger drop all the way back down to the downside. So that's kind of the way that I'm factoring all of this stuff in. You know, it's all going to be determined around what happens inside of the SPX, and what happens inside of the SPX is also going to be determined around, you know, what the dollar does. The dollar is sitting at resistance. Doesn't mean that we have to pull back. We can actually break back up even higher. And if that's going to be the case, then we would expect that the SPX is going to ultimately break down from this bounce. But as it stands, you know, the market can go either way. We don't have confirmation by any means. Bitcoin is just going to follow whatever the heck the SPX does. And so that's what we need to pay attention for. Now, guys, inside of 2 weeks ago, I made a video talking about my top 5 altcoins heading into 2023. Altcoins that I think are going to perform very well. And a lot of you guys actually participated in buying some of those. So for the rest of this video, we're going to be actually doing an update on all 5 of those cryptos, analyzing where they're at for my video, and giving you guys an idea of if these are still good buys, if they're too late, and all of that stuff. So let's get right into it. Now, first up on the list is going to be GMX. Now, you guys know I'm really bullish on this. I've been covering this one a lot, and we actually covered this inside of my video during this sell-off right here, and we were retesting this green level. And the reason I thought this green level was so important is because if you go out here on the weekly time frame, and we zoom out a little bit, we were inside of this candle right here, and it was actually a bearish candle that was all the way back down at this green level. And I talked about this because we had seen resistance being made around this level so many times inside of our consolidation period. And for us to be breaking up and then retesting it as support, I knew that was a good entry for everybody to get in that hadn't been in. And from that point, we've only ever seen a breakout, and we're up about 53 to 54% approximately. And so this is exactly why I thought that this was a good buy. A lot of the reason I was so bullish on this had mainly to do with the fact that I believe in Arbitrum as an entire ecosystem, and this is the leader of Arbitrum. And so as it stands right now, we've pretty much broken out, we've made new all-time highs, and so for the people that have bought, they're in good profit. For the people that haven't, I really wouldn't be surprised to see a pullback relatively soon, and we could literally come all the way back down to basically this level here. On the weekly, it would be taking us somewhere around $58. And that's just the way that the market's going to kind of factor in based off of what happens with the DXY, what happens with the SPX. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see this come back down and actually start consolidating on basically this prior range. And I could say that anywhere from about 62 to 55, it's a pretty decent sized range. And so I'm not trying to predict exactly where the price is going to go, but we have broken out and made a new all-time high. So any pullback that we do see, I honestly would imagine that we would end up just consolidating off of this before actually breaking out and going into our next cycle. And so as it stands, if you didn't buy down in here, it's kind of hard for me to say if it's a good signal still. I still think it's very undervalued. If you're looking on a term from 2 to 3 years down the line, I think that this will be a good buy. Now in the short term, like I stated, I think that we can see a pullback. And if that's the case, if you don't have any exposure, I always tell people, get some exposure even if you're FOMO buying into it, and then keep a little bit of money on the sidelines. Get your amount of money into the market that you just feel comfortable with having, a position, whatever that is to you. And then keep a little bit on the sidelines that you would be grateful to buy a dip if we do in fact get it, because it is possible that we could see another correction to retest these range highs. And with the DXY showing a little bit of strength in here, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case and we do actually see a deeper market correction. But like I stated, guys, when I see the Bitcoin chart, I still think that we have one more higher high to go. And if Bitcoin makes another higher high upwards of 26 to 27K, we could literally see the price of GMX really start rocketing. We could go all the way upwards of $100 before we see any type of pullback, which is why I say we might not ever end up coming back down to retest these range highs. And if we do, we might rally all the way up to $100 first, start correcting, and then we might not even get that close to that level. We might end up holding support quite a ways above it. So that's kind of the way that I'm factoring all of this stuff in. Regardless, this is a massive accumulation. This is an entire wave 1, and then we're working on wave 3, which is going to be the most impulsive wave. Inside of wave 3, if we come in here, inside of wave 3, we've already finished wave 1 of 3. So this entire move right now is wave 3 of 3. And I honestly think that this wave 3 of 3 could take us to about $100 or so, maybe even more. I'd say anywhere from about $100 to $110. We'd have a wave 4 correction, and then we still have another 5 wave to go before this thing is over by any means. Our minimum target that we have to reach based off of Fibonacci is going to be only here at about 95 to $100. So that's why I say that we'll most likely be hitting $100 before any sizable correction. But because this is wave 3 of 3, I honestly think that it could far overextend that, and we could be sitting here over around 110 to 120, maybe even higher than that. And then that's still going to be taking us into a final wave 5. I really wouldn't be surprised to see this wave 3 rally all the way upwards of about 150 to $200 before we see a deeper wave 4 correction. And then we still have a whole nother 5 wave to go. And so I'm not trying to predict the exact price, but based off of how the Elliott waves look, I think that this thing can get way extended very fast. That's why I've kind of been very adamant about telling you guys to get in early, because you don't want to try and guess where the heck the prices are going to go. Once they go into price discovery, at that point it's anybody's best guess. And with crypto, we can draw a Fibonacci target, but oftentimes inside of a real bull market, they far surpass all Fibonacci's, and they just go up so fast that, there's really no way of even having any sort of idea. When adoption comes in, when institutions buy the dip, the markets just fly in a big way, and this thing doesn't even have $1 billion in market cap yet. So I do think that this one's going to going to be taking off in a much bigger way for the people that are interested in buying it long term. Now, next up on the list is going to be Mummy Finance. Now, Mummy Finance is only sitting at about $8.5 million in market cap. From the signal that I gave to you guys on YouTube, we are up, let's see exactly where, this was the price. We're up about 3x, and we peaked at about 4.3x. And so this one's been a nice winner for us so far, and it's hard to say whether it's done right now. You know, if you're up 3 to 4x approximately, depending on where you bought it, you know, it might be a decent time to take profits based off of what I see is the potential of a head and shoulder formation playing out. If this ends up breaking down and we don't hold this ascending support, you know, we could actually see this thing drop all the way back down to about $4.25 approximately, and it would be a decent sized drop. Regardless, to me, you know, I've been holding this and I'm just staking mine. I plan to continue to stake mine. I'm going to hold through the dips because I think that this one can actually do very well. Regardless if we see a big sell-off, you know, I've made quite a bit of profit off of this one so far, as you guys have as well. And so I'm just letting you guys know the potentials. As it stands right now, I wouldn't be surprised if, as long as we hold this ascending support, you know, we could literally end up just going higher and then making one more big impulse before this thing is done. And it's hard to say exactly where we're at based off the Elliott wave count. I can see this going a couple different ways. This is obviously a wave 1. This could be an entire wave 3 with a wave 4 correction, and we're still working on our final impulse. Or we could also be looking at this being a wave 1, a wave 3, and then this was a wave 5. Regardless, if this is the case, we would expect that this is going to break down. We'd come back down to about the $4.50, $4.25 region, and then that would be our wave 4 correction before we still have one more impulse to go. Because remember, guys, the way that the Bitcoin chart to me looks is that we still are going to get one more final impulse upwards. And so if that's going to be the case, if Bitcoin makes a deeper correction right here, we would ultimately expect that all of these other altcoins will also make a deeper correction. But until we see a true breakdown of the trend, you know, we don't necessarily need to bet on that super heavy. At the end of the day, I can see either scenario taking place, whether this is the top of a wave 3 and we're needing a 4-wave correction, or whether we're not even finished with wave 3 and this is wave 3 of 3, wave 4, and we still have one more 5-wave to go before we see a deeper correction. If that's the case and we get another 5-wave that takes us upwards of, you know, $12 or so, we would expect that 4-wave to come back down inside of this same market structure that we're at right now. And then we would still have another impulse to go. And so if that's the case, you don't necessarily want to get too over ahead of yourself. That's why I'm telling you guys right now, for me, I'm holding. If we see this break down and go all the way back down in here, I'm still just going to be holding to what I have. If we see this go all the way up to another wave 5 and then get a correction, I'm still just going to be holding, because regardless, I like the value proposition that this one has, being a hard fork of GMX built on Phantom. I'm a bull on Phantom long term, and I think that this one itself is going to continue to perform well as long as GMX does well, as long as Phantom does well, and these are two cryptos that I think actually have a significant use case heading into this next cycle. So just wanted to give you guys that little update. If we do break down, for the people that are already up significantly, you know, it might be a good time to sell your initial entry. And if you're just somebody like me that wants to hold for the long term, like I genuinely believe in this, and so for me, I'm just going to hold on to it. So that's Mummy Finance. Now, next up on the list today is going to be Hamachi. Now, for you guys that have been holding Hamachi, this is at the same market cap as MMY, and I really do like this setup for a couple different ways. Where we originally bought it inside of my YouTube video was about right here. This is a little bit higher than where we bought, but we're up about 3.5x here. And so I did want to give you guys this update just because of the fact I do see the potential that we could be at the completion of our wave 3. And if that's the case, then we would expect a deeper correction to actually ensue. If this is the top of our wave 3, I would say, you know, probably about the 0.5 to the 618 would be the most likely area that we would correct to. But we could also end up, you know, finding support somewhere inside of this market structure, which is between the 382 and the 0.5. I actually participated inside of their public sell. So for me, my tokens are locked for the next 6 months, and then a year is when I'll actually get them unlocked. And so I'll get those in increments of 6 months and then to a year. So at the end of the day, you know, I got to hold this long term. I don't hold anything else that I just bought off the market. I'm just, you know, just holding what I bought from the initial offering. And so with that being said, I wanted to give you guys this little update because it is up 3.5x. it's only at like $7.5 million in total market cap. So for me, if it was me holding crypto that I could actually sell right now, I would still hold on to this because of the fact by holding on to this, you're literally earning different altcoins. I've earned a ton of money off of this. Keep in mind that obviously speaking, I'm up significantly because I was here from the very beginning of the launch. But nonetheless, for anybody that's buying this, you're actually going to get direct exposure and rewards paid out to the holders. And so far, the ones that have been paid out are JonesDAO, they've paid out TenderFi, they've paid out Hegic, they've paid out Radiant Capital. All 4 of these are up significantly from the time that we started earning rewards. And so even if you're somebody that got in here, after the fact, after the release and all of that, if you bought after my video, you're up 3.5x and you're probably already earning those profitable rewards. And so if that's the case, for me, being in such a low market cap, I think that this one's going to go up a lot higher, even if we get a deeper correction right now. And so I don't necessarily care about a deeper correction because for me, I'm already locked long term. But if it was me actually holding something that I could sell on the open market, the best thing to do with playing low caps is just to, double your money and then take out your initial entry fee. That's the safest way to play it because you can let the profits ride, and if this thing turns into something big, at that point you don't really have any risk because it's just your profits that are, accumulating, growing to whatever they're going to. And if that was the case for me, that's most likely the strategy that I would play because that's the strategy that I play across the board when I buy low caps. Now, with Hamachi, it's a little bit different because I do think that this one could actually hit $100 million plus market cap. And with Arbitrum season pretty much taking off in full swing, this one's allowing you to get allocation to multiple different Arbitrum plays. And so it's literally a portfolio builder. So it makes more sense to hold on to this. By selling it, you're basically just going to earn less rewards. And so, if this is an actual top, you could actually buy back at the dip. But most of you guys aren't traders. And even with me being somebody that's been in crypto for 7 years, studied a lot of charts and trading, at the end of the day, I still don't even try and predict a lot of stuff because I've oftentimes tried to take profits looking to rebuy the dip. The dip never comes, or I was just short or off based off of where I thought the bottom would be. And then the market takes off without me. And so if that's the case, I think that we're better off holding through. This one's sitting at still $10 million in market cap. It's actually only at 7.5. So with that being said, I'm going to hold on to it. But for the people that want to take profits, I did want to give you this quick update. Now, next up on the list is going to be LooksRare. Now, LooksRare is up a decent amount from where we originally gave the signal. I don't know the exact price, but it was just up here a little bit. In fact, from where I bought it in my group, it was up about 20% or so. So you're looking at approximately, looks like we're up about 63% from the time I gave the YouTube video, and we ended up peaking at about 120%. And so as it stands for me, this is one that I think could actually be setting in for a deeper correction based off the fact if this is a wave 1, this is a wave 3, and this is a wave 5, then we would expect this to come back down to basically in between this range right here. And so if you are in profit, it might be a decent opportunity to sell. For me, this is a long-term hold. I didn't buy this just to take short-term profits. I bought this just to hold for the long term. And so this one does look like we could have finished a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 wave impulse. But with that being said, it's so impossible to try and predict these early impulses. And so that's why for me, I'm just going to be holding on to it. I got a really good entry near the all-time lows. And so if this thing ends up taking off into a big way into this next bull cycle, I'm not going to be too worried about these short-term corrections in here. For me, this is a long-term play because I do believe in NFT marketplaces. And so I did want to give you guys this quick little update. For anybody that did actually buy down in here, it does look like it is a decent place that you could take some profits. It's already peaked a little bit. So like I stated, it's all up to you guys what you want to do. But I did want to give an update based off of what the market looks like to me. If this is a short-term top and we come all the way back down, there will be a good opportunity to get back in pretty much right where you guys initially bought. And so that's why I wanted to cover this, is because of the fact if we do correct back down, chances are you'll basically do a full round trip and it'll come pretty close back down to your entry. So I did want to give that quick little update on LooksRare. Regardless, I'm holding. Now, last up on today's list is going to be Telcoin. Now, Telcoin is basically sitting at the exact same place that I made the video. So if you didn't get in, you still have the opportunity of getting in. As it stands today, we are just holding this diagonal trend line as support. And I think that this one still looks very bullish. Nothing has really changed inside of the market structure. I liked this because it's just the first impulse of a new cycle. we saw a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse up, and then we saw an ABC correction back down. And from that point, we've actually seen another wave 1, except this is a wave 1 of 3. And so I think that the next impulse could actually take us beyond our high, or at least close to this high at about 0.0033. And then we would still be expecting a bigger move to the upside. Once that wave 3 is finished, wave 4 correction back down, and then we'd still have another wave 5 to the upside. What we're looking at across the board on altcoins is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before this entire trend is over. And so we just have to count our subwaves as we continue to accumulate, as we continue to rally back up. And I like this one because of the fact it's just the early stages of a new bull cycle. And with these, having such massive sell-offs inside of their bear markets, they can go up really high. I can draw Elliott waves, I can show you Fibonacci levels, but for me, I honestly was holding this with the expectation that we would probably rally all the way back up to about 0.009, and that's a decent sized move from where we're at today. If I come over here and draw a price range tool, that's like 2.5x, and so I'm going to be holding for quite a while, regardless of the ups and downs. I'm not trying to predict the short-term price action, and I don't think anybody else really should either. If you got in at the support floor, or if you got in at a relatively low price around that bear market low, I can almost guarantee that a few years from now, when we look back at this, a lot of you guys will be happy that you held. At the very least, if you make profit, like I stated, if you make double your money, you can take out the initial entry that you put in, you can put that into cash or put it into whatever, and then you have just profits that can ride long term. And that's a really good strategy for making money inside of the crypto markets. And that's honestly the way that I would tell any novice person to play the market. Obviously, 100% gains is easier said than done, but with these sort of cryptos, I gave them to you guys on this list with the expectation that we would most likely hit those gains. And if you were following along with LooksRare, you would have been able to double your money when we made inside of this rally. So if that's the case, you could have already been doing so. Just keep in mind that when we're moving forward. Anyways, guys, with all of this stuff, I do trade this stuff inside of my Discord. So I give out exit targets, I give out areas of where we should set sell orders and all of that stuff. And so if you guys do want to actually get access to that, I talk about all of the details of these trades inside of my Discord, all my entries, exits, and different picks and stuff moving forward into this cycle. And so if you guys want to see those, you want to have lifetime access to what I'm doing, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up for my signals. I really appreciate the support, you guys. It's nice to see a lot of new faces entering back into the market as we've started to see the market take off again. We're going to be looking at the stock market and the DXY to ultimately determine the direction that the short-term price of Bitcoin is going to be headed, and I'll keep you guys updated as follows. But thank you guys so much for the support, and with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.